the day after his landslide victory in the local elections. Keir Starmer used a traditional post-victory speech at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool to set out his vision for a new Britain. He said he can fix Britain, but he's not being honest about just how broken it really is. He's promised a decade of national renewal. He's vowed to give Britain its future back. But while the man in charge projects calm, pragmatic leadership, millions of people across the country are living a totally different reality. It's a reality of stagnant wages, crumbling services, and that quiet, creeping feeling that things just don't work anymore. So, what's the real story? Is Britain a great nation that just needs a quick tune-up, like Starmer suggests? Or is the damage far deeper, the result of long-term trends and political choices that can't be fixed with a few nice speeches? Today we cut through the noise. We're going to look at the hard data, the inconvenient facts, and the lived experiences that politicians love to ignore. This isn't about hope or despair. It's about reality. Let's kick things off with the economy. It's the bedrock of any country's success. Labour's number one mission is to get the highest sustained growth in the G7. Now, on the surface, there are some okay signs. The UK economy did see a strong start to 2025, with Q1 growth hitting 0.7%, which for a moment put it at the top of the G7 pack. But that's where the simple story ends and the complicated truth begins. That growth is fragile. Forecasts for the full year are hovering around a modest 1.2%, well below our historical average. The economy just lacks momentum. This isn't some robust recovery. It's more like a patient who's just about managed to sit up in bed. Growth is being almost entirely propped up in the services sector, while crucial areas like manufacturing and construction are lagging behind. This creates a two-speed economy where any prosperity is bundled up in specific sectors and regions, leaving everyone else behind. But the biggest drag on our economic potential is something you rarely hear about on the news: public sector productivity. An EY report found that if the public sector as productivity had just kept up with the private sector since 2019, UK GDP would be 3% larger. That isn't a small number. It translates to a staggering estimate of £80 billion in lost economic output every single year. Think about what that money could do for our schools, our hospitals, our roads. This isn't just about spreadsheets. It's about the quality of the services we all depend on. It means we're putting more in and getting less out. And then there's the elephant in the room: Brexit. Whatever your view on it, the economic reality is unavoidable. The government's own watchdog, the Office for Budgetary Responsibility, estimates that in the long run, leaving the EU will slash our national income by 4%. We were promised that shiny new global trade deals would fill the gap. But so far, the government's own forecasts show they will add a tiny fraction of a percent to GDP. You just can't ignore a permanent 4% hole in your economy and claim the engine is running smoothly. It's a structural handicap that no amount of political spin can erase. Nowhere is the gap between political promises and daily life more painful than in our National Health Service. LABOUR's mission is to build an NHS fit for the future. But for millions, the NHS today feels like it's stuck in a never-ending crisis. Let's be blunt. The hospital treatment waiting list is a national disgrace. While it has fallen from its absolute peak, it's still stubbornly high at around 7.4 million cases in England. To give you some perspective, before the pandemic, that number was about 4.5 million. The target for patients to be treated within 18 weeks of a referral hasn't been met since 2016, not even close. The median wait for treatment is now over 14 weeks. Think about what that means in real life. It's a grandparent who can't get a hip replacement, living in constant pain. It's a parent waiting, sick with worry, for a diagnostic test. It's millions of individual stories of suffering and lives put on hold. In a NE, the situation is just as dire. Despite the heroic efforts of the staff, thousands of patients are waiting over 12 hours just to be admitted to a bed after a doctor has decided they need one. This isn't a system that's just a bit strained. This is a system showing clear signs of collapse. While the government rightly points to increased funding, promising a 3% real terms annual increase for the NHS, that money is being swallowed by rising costs and debt. More importantly, protecting the NHS budget creates a squeezed middle of other public services. Schools, social care, local government, these vital areas are facing flat or declining budgets in real terms. They're being asked to do more with less year after year. That's why your council tax goes up, but your bins are collected less often. It's why schools struggle to afford teaching assistants. It's why finding care for an elderly relative feels impossible. It's a policy of robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's stretching the fabric of our public services to its breaking point. So, faced with this reality, what's Keir Starmer's grand solution? His plan is built on 5 missions: kickstarting growth, becoming a clean energy superpower, taking back our streets, breaking down barriers to opportunity, and building a future-proof NHS. They're big, long-term goals. Starmer's approach is to be pragmatic, not ideological, saying he doesn't care if investment is public or private. He just wants us to get the job done. He talks about stronger rights for workers, cutting red tape, and investing in new homes and infrastructure. For the NHS, the goals are specific: faster ambulance times, hitting A&E targets, and making people happier with their GPs. But here's the fundamental problem. The diagnosis is wrong. By refusing to admit how deep the structural damage goes, the proposed solutions feel like putting a plaster on a gaping wound. How can you promise the highest sustained growth in the G7 while glossing over a permanent 4% Brexit-sized hole in the economy? How can you fix the NHS without a revolutionary plan for funding and reform that goes way beyond tinkering at the edges? The plan to get Britain building again is crucial, but it runs headfirst into a planning system that Starmer himself has called a barrier to bid projects. His promise to be tough on crime meets a criminal justice system that's chronically underfunded. His mission to create a clean energy superpower is a fantastic goal, but it needs a level of investment and political will that feels completely at odds with the cautious, fiscally constrained language the party keeps using. This is the core contradiction. Keir Starmer is selling a message of renewal while telling people no radical action is needed. He talks about fixing a broken country, but insists it isn't actually broken. This cautious dance might be smart politics, but it's a terrible foundation for good government. You can't solve a problem you refuse to define accurately. You can't perform major surgery with a butter knife. The painful budget cuts and tax rises he's hinted at suggest a grim acceptance of reality behind closed doors. But the public message remains one of gentle tinkering, not the revolutionary change the country so desperately needs. To truly fix the foundations, you first have to admit that they're cracked. Rebuilding Britain requires an honest, even brutal assessment of the damage. Without that honesty, any plan, no matter how well-intentioned, is doomed to fall short. The most important mission of all isn't one of the 5 Starmer has listed. It's the mission to tell the British people the truth. So what do you think? Can Keir Starmer really fix a system he won't admit is broken? Are his plans enough, or is this just more sticking plaster politics? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you want more analysis that gets behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe.